Brutality from ISIS raising serious questions about just what it will take to actually defeat the Islamic extremists. Former actor CIA Director Mike Morell expressing doubts now about the coalition's ability to actually get the job done.
Unless the coalition is willing to put more ground troops into Iraq and possibly into Syria, there is very little we can do to respond.
How many ground troops would it take?
I think it would take 100,000. And that will simply does not exist here, and it doesn't exist in the other coalition countries.
Chad Williams is a former Navy SEAL and author of Seal of God. Thanks so much for coming on The Real Story today. You just heard Mr. Morell, a former CIA director, saying 100,000 troops, talking about ground troops from the coalition. Seemingly, he doesn't think that the airstrikes can get the job done. What do you think?
That's very interesting. I think more important than 100,000 ground troops really would just be we need one courageous leader, and I mean that with all sincerity. All rhetoric aside, you know, the outlook is pretty bleak, but whether it be bleak or optimistic, we really have one of two options. It's either fight or we flee. And ISIS really is using a scare tactic here. There's a strategy to this highly edited video. They're trying to cause fear within the hearts of people so that they will not fight them. This was successful for them when they took Mosul. And I seem to remember a time when I turned on a television one day, and in a similar way, I saw my mentor, who is a former U.S. Navy SEAL by the name of Scott Helvenston, brutally murdered March 31st, 2004 in the streets of Fallujah, Iraq. His body was mutilated. They dragged him through the streets of Fallujah, and they hung him upside down from the Euphrates River Bridge, setting his body on fire. So rather than having fear, in my individual circumstances there, I had a fire lit within my heart as I saw my mentor on fire, and I think the same needs to be done for the U.S. I think us collectively as a whole. You know, I remember a time in our history.
Yeah, well, Chad, you must be talking about President Obama then.
That's right, and I mean it with all sincerity. He just needs to stand up, he needs to be courageous, and he needs to inspire thousands of extraordinary men to do what would take 100,000 ordinary men to do.
With all due respect, Chad, it doesn't seem like he really wants to do that. I mean, I'm just being frank. I mean, for example, he had this summit that he planned after the Paris attacks on January 7th, but he put the date at February 18th. I mean, wouldn't you have done that a little bit sooner to try and tackle this problem?
I would be cutting the snake's head off immediately, right away. Hopefully this is a tipping point, because we watched a Jordanian pilot being burned alive on television, and we need to react soon before it happens to be one of our sons or one of our daughters. What's it going to take before we move?
Former Navy SEAL Chad Williams, thank you for your impassioned thoughts today.